Greetings YouTube, this is Toy Customizer Wakeangel2K1 and today we're going to move on to the Toy Island phase of the Sonic toy line. And I think Toy Island should have special mention because it actually held the line's license for quite a while. I think Jazzwares might have passed them recently, but I'm not sure because I don't really know the start and ending dates. But I figured I'd do a quick little review of all the toy lines that are actually out there from this company, because I actually don't own a lot of them. The reasons being because I was in college when this toy line was out, so I didn't have a lot of disposable income at the time, and I didn't have a means to actually go to toy stores and do toy hunting. So I really only know this toy line by very brief looks into the stores, which were few and far between, and by what I saw on the internet after, on the aftermarket. So like I said, Toy Island held the license for quite a long time, and it made quite a few versions of Sonic, mostly at the 6-inch scale, but with a bunch of different sculpts. I remember specifically that I didn't get this particular one, which I believe is their first, because I didn't like the sculpt or the fact that he came like pre-posed, so you wouldn't be able to pose him very much yourself. Also, at this time I already had the Joyride Studios Sonic Bendy, which I felt was just a much better looking Sonic figure. After that, Toy Island would go on to produce their Megabot Series. This was a series of Sonic figures tying into the Sonic X anime, which actually came with a part to a Collect and Connect figure, which is the RBX-D05 robot. I don't quite remember the exact design from the anime, but I think it was in an episode. This particular line actually had two Sonic figures. The one which came with the torso and head of the robot, and another which had an action feature and came with one of the Badniks from the first episode of the anime. It's good to see Badniks from the anime get a little bit of love in figure form, especially since we wouldn't actually get proper video game Badniks until Jazzwares came out with their Generations line. Looking back on it, I actually regret that I don't have a few of these figures today, but at the time, their articulation and the fact that they came pre-posed just didn't appeal to me. Not to mention the fact that I don't think I ever actually saw these in stores personally. So, they were never available for me to buy, so I couldn't get them. Toy Island also came out with a few gimmick figures, such as the Space Fighters, which were later re-released without helmets and called the Metal Force. And, I do remember seeing at least the Shadow and Tails figures in stores, and I just really did not like their sculpt. These were really bad gimmick figures, and well, just take a look at Sonic here. He looks really derpy. I mean, they have articulation, but the sculpt is just kind of off, and I didn't like it. Although this series, for some reason, it came with another Badnik. None other than Rocketwrist, one of the first robots that Dr. Eggman used in the anime. I mean, for a robot with almost no identity that featured in a single early episode of the show, that's actually a really nice figure. The wrists even extend out like it did in the cartoon. That was pretty cool. And of course, I never saw it in stores. And finally, I want to give Toy Island credit for making the first fully realized action figures of Rouge the Bat, Cream and Cheese, and even Chris Thorndike. These were some of their later figures, and they would actually be very, very difficult to find in stores. I know I personally never saw them, and they're actually quite collectible now. Although I think this is somewhat telling of the character's popularity. The Rouge figure goes for $200. I've never seen her go for less. I've seen Cream go for as low as $80. That Chris Thorndike figure, even after all these years, I haven't seen him for higher than $20. Okay, that's enough of that. We're gonna move on to the last figure that they made before the license passed on to Jazzwares, at least to my knowledge. The Sonic Superposer. Alright, sorry to keep you waiting. Here is the Toy Island Sonic Superposer. I have left it in the packaging to prove that this is not Jazzwares' re-release of the mold, but rather the original one, which advertises 20 points of articulation and comes from the Sonic X brand. As you know, Jazzwares focuses on all the video game appearances of the figures, but the Toy Island one, aside from perhaps their very first wave, which included a Dr. Eggman that came with a Kiki the monkey, focused on the anime. Okay, so let's get him out of the box. And I had forgotten how much tape is on this thing. Yeah, you probably want to see me struggle around with this thing in the camera shot, don't you? Okay, come on. Okay, got the hands. Alright, so let's stand him up and show that the Sonic Superposer does one thing that none of the other Toy Island Sonic figures was ever able to do, and that is, you know, stand. Just stand coolly with your hands at your sides, calmly. Every other Toy Island figure had Sonic with his legs made into a pre-pose bend, or his arm was like this and his hands were throwing up some weird signs. But this one is just a figure who can stand straight or take on whatever pose you want with all his wonderful articulation. So let's walk through that articulation. He has 4 moving spines on the back of his head. I guess you can have him flying up through the air. I don't know why they go down so far though. His head is on a swivel. He has universal shoulder joints. He has an elbow that goes almost 90 degrees. And it goes backwards a little bit, but you really want that. He has a rotating wrist. He has a hinge built into the wrist. And he has the 4 fingers on his hand able to open and close. So, yeah, that's just his head and arms. He has a waist joint right there. And he has universal hip joints that go out and around. He has a knee that goes 90 degrees again. He has a swivel at the ankle, and at where the sock meets the shoe, there is another tilt there, and his foot can fold in half. It can fold in half in both directions, but mostly that's important because that works for running poses. If there's any flaws with the articulation of this figure, it would probably be that the way the hips are made. Let me see if I can zoom in to show the joint itself. You see, the peg is facing outwards, meaning that the most natural way for the leg to go is out like that. I guess if you wanted to have him doing a Sonic, if you wanted to have Sonic doing like a rider kick, that would kind of work. But you know, this is Sonic. You primarily want a Sonic figure, if you're going to pose him, to be in a running pose. And since the leg is designed to go at that weird angle, it can make it a little bit awkward to actually pull off. Not impossible, but a little awkward. Let's see. I'm going to try and do it right here for you guys. I guess that works. Although the fact that you can't really move the hips too far forward and back. Yeah, there we go. Oh, I almost forgot to mention, the ears also fold. So yeah, in terms of articulation, and You know, these aren't exactly weak floppy joints too. He holds up fairly well. I've never actually done anything to tighten his joints, but I never really needed to. He holds pretty solidly as far as I've been able to tell. Are there any notable flaws besides the hip? Well, you probably noticed something weird about his eyes. If you haven't, let's zoom in a bit on his face. You notice something? You notice something like the fact that this eye is almost horizontal? That was Toy Island's only real flaw. Jazzwares would later get a hold of this mold and re-release it, and they would do an improvement to the eyes that would look more like this, where the iris actually intersects with the brow line and disappears. Here, they wanted to draw the full iris as an oval and angled it so that it wouldn't intersect the brow line, which looks extremely weird. More than once I thought of painting over that to do it upright. In fact, I just might do that eventually. But this is the Toy Island Sonic Superposer figure. It, in a toy company that produced a bunch of action figures that took on very particular poses and couldn't really pose that much, this was a breath of fresh air, and actually one of my favorite Sonic figures from the time, and would remain that way for quite a while. So I would recommend the Jazzwares re-release of this figure. I believe nowadays they even make the heads out of a lighter material so that they're less top heavy, because this guy is a bit top heavy with how far back those spines go, and the fact that the head is made out of the same kinds of plastic as the body. So, this has been Toy Customizer Wakeangel2K1, educating you about the first iteration of the Sonic Superposer, and I suppose I'm actually up to the Jazzwares line when I review my next Sonic figure. See you then. Hopefully after I've made a couple more custom videos.